Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jerred Moon. The Garage Gym Athlete Podcast is a result of my desire to build better humans, unequivocal coaches, and autonomous athletes. I've spent the last several years obsessing over program design, nutrition, and every other way you can optimize human performance. This podcast distills the latest scientific research with what I've learned and blends it with the not-so-scientific field of mental toughness. We are here to build you into a dangerously effective athlete. If you enjoy this podcast, you can find out more about our training at garagegymathlete.com. And if you want to pursue more into the field of coaching and programming, head to endof3fitness.com. Thanks for listening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jeremy Moon here with Kyle Shrum, Joe Courtney, and Ashley Hicks. How is everyone doing today?
Fabulous.
Good.
Yeah, that's all I want to hear. Don't give me the real problems, you know? You ever tried that on somebody? They're like, how you doing? You're like, not great.
But I appreciate the honesty. I hate I'm fine when you're not fine.
Yeah, but it depends on like the situation. Because if you're like at a Christmas party and they're like, hey man, how's it going? I haven't seen you in a long time. It's like, things are not going well. Do you want to talk about it?
Follow up with, okay, well then how can we?
No, I'm like you. I would dive in. I'm like ready for deep conversations. I'm like, yes, let's talk about why things aren't going well. I want to talk about that, not how the weather's been lately.
Yep.
Unseasonably hot. Okay. Well, I guess we could get back on topic with some science here. We're talking about the deadlift today. So we've been getting a little bit too much love on the squat, you know? The back squat's been getting a lot of love.
Whoa.
What? We've been talking about like all sorts of different squat variations.
Sure.
I mean, I don't care to talk about the squat for at least 2 more years.
Oh, you calm down.
We're going to go into the deadlift today. And the name of the study is High Load with Lower Repetitions versus Low Load with Higher Repetitions, the impact on asymmetry in weight distribution during deadlifting. I thought this was a very cool study. Joe found it, and good work on locating this one. I thought it was cool because I just agree with like so much of what they're saying, and I feel like sometimes we're talking about I wish a coach would like oversee it. It's almost like they were, even like the idea of the study, because there is a lot of research that you can develop asymmetries, and they are pointing to literature saying like you're going to have these imbalances or differences from heavy loads done repeatedly. There's a lot of like scientific studies backing that up, but they're like, is it more just heavy lifting, or is it lighter lifting? Is it just the movement itself? Does deadlifting lend itself to an asymmetry that could lead to an injury? And so these are kind of some of the things that they were trying to uncover. They had 10 participants, so it wasn't a massive study. They had to be experience with performing the deadlift and no history of back pain in the previous 6 months. More or less, it wasn't huge, and there wasn't a lot, but they did look at a lot of cool stuff. They would have them lift on a ground force reaction plate or whatever to see where their feet were on, or like where the pressure was on their feet when they would lift all throughout the entire lift. I've actually used machines like this to test balance and other things, and it's really cool to see. One of them, one was just testing balance when I did it. And so you stand there and you're in this like fake scenery. This isn't what they use necessarily, but the one I did, you're in this like fake scenery. It's like not virtual reality, but like they could place you outside, right? And it's got these screens that go all the way around you. So they can distort your balance, right? They can distort like the horizon and everything else. And then they see what happens to your balance when you're doing that. And what's crazy is my balance was pretty good. And then they were like, okay, close your eyes. And they just left everything normal. And the second you close your eyes, to you, it feels like nothing. Like you're like, what? My eyes are closed. I'm standing here. But then they show you on the ground force reaction plate, like all the lines and stuff. The second you close your eyes, they start going crazy. Like all of your muscles start firing to try and keep you balanced, because it doesn't have a frame of reference for you to see anymore. And these things are micro, like I said, when I did it, I couldn't even tell that I was moving, but then they show me the data and they're like, yeah, the second you close your eyes, your balance starts going crazy. And the reason I bring that up is because that's tiny. Like I close my eyes, I have muscles firing. I didn't even know we're firing. They can tell because these gauges and instruments are so sensitive. Now let's just put that in the lens of deadlifting, right? There are things going on with your deadlifting that you are completely unaware of. And they really just wanted to uncover if where the asymmetries could develop. And I won't get too much into the programming. The programming to me was fine because they equated for volume across the high load, low rep group and the low load, high rep group. So they equated the volume, which I thought would be really important in a study like this. It's like in my brain before I even started reading, I was like, I hope they equated the load, and they did. And so that was really cool because there's not a lot of pushback on it being poor programming, poor study. The sets and reps I all thought were good. And then they essentially found that the heavy condition was less symmetrical than those in the light condition. And the light condition and lifts became more symmetrical as set number increased. So it's almost like as you practice the lift, you got better and better at it. So yeah, ultimately, what we take away from this not is just that heavy loads can cause asymmetry, light loads not as much, and we can kind of talk about other things from the study and our own observations. So what did you guys think?
So at first, when I picked the study out, I thought it was going to be about something completely different. I thought it was going to be more of a strength and loads and stuff. But I'm glad that where it went about how basically about how doing the switch grip in the deadlift. So one overhand, one underhand for deadlift, which is very, very common for people. How that could lead to asymmetrical imbalances in your back and everything. And I definitely have a lot more anecdotal things to say toward the end, so I'll just wait till everybody else goes. But good things that things that I want to note about this actual study that I liked was they tested a 5 rep max to find out their 1 rep max. So they didn't have like a 1 rep max test. They did a 5 rep max, and the 5 rep max that they chose was a 5 rep max before any form breakdown. So if there was any sort of back lumbar flexing or things like that, then that's where they cut off the 5 rep max. So you know how you see some people that they can pull some weight, but their backs are doing some janky stuff. They actually had a 5 rep good form max that they equated to a 1 rep max. So I thought that was really cool versus just doing a true max out.
And that's something that we preach constantly, like especially during fit week. We're like, it's a 1 rep max with perfect form. That's what I always say. It's not because when we first started PR shirts, it was a dangerous looking Facebook community.
Not wrong.
I'm not gonna lie. It took a couple months of the proper athlete briefs and Facebook lives and everything else to get the community together. I'm like, hey, if you're not lifting it right, it's not going to count. Like you can't care that much about the free T-shirt. You gotta keep your spine healthy. But sorry, Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, and the results they found that the lighter loads had more asymmetry, more imbalance, but out of the 10 participants, 1 got bounced, and it's because he bounced the weight. So one of the protocols for the lifting was after they did each rep, they had to completely pause at the bottom so that each rep on their graphs would be completely separate so they could distinguish of it. Well, that one person, and normally we never note, why somebody gets kicked out of a study, but this one I found was really cool. The one person that got kicked out of the study is because he did like touch and go. So they say he bounced, but basically it was a touch and go. And they still measured his asymmetry, and his was like 6 times worse than the people that were actually like pausing. So touch and go was resulting in way worse asymmetry. And just think about how you might deadlift and how most people deadlift if it's more than 1 rep. You're probably touching and going. So that I felt was, even though I like that they left it in there, and even though they counted that person out of the results, was very interesting to me. But before I get into anything else, I'll pass it off to Ashley.
Well, even going with that, like I thought about too, when they said the load had to touch all the way down to the ground, how many people too, when they get done, like let's say it's 10 reps, you get done with your 10 rep and then they stand up at the top and then drop it, So instead of fully finishing the rep. So I like the study too a ton because it talked about, we talked about obviously like the less symmetry with heavier loads, and you talked about the mixed grip a bit. but I found it interesting too. Like it talked about it increased like tilting, which if I ever, when I get heavy, I know I mix grip. I try to stay just both hands the same way for a while, as long as I can. And then if I'm going heavy, I chalk a bit, which they talked about. They included chalk if they needed it and whatnot. But I found that very interesting. And so it made me want to like video myself. I mean, obviously I know they're doing, they have these crazy machines that are helping to like see this, but I think maybe even videoing yourself would see like, maybe are you leaning one way? And I mean, it makes sense, right? You're going to go more dominant when you're getting heavy, I guess. I don't know. But the thing that I found interesting too is it talked about when you wanted to work on that asymmetrical issue, like if you wanted to focus on your symmetry and like trying to, pull it without tilting, without leaning, it said to lighten the load down to 60%, I think is what they said. But then they talked about how sometimes that is an issue with people who, it says, a potential concern with recommending lower intensity lifting for individuals seeking athletic performance is reduced strength gains, right? Because if you think you're only lifting 60% most of the time, then, you're not gaining that strength because you're not changing the percentages, going heavier, I guess. So it says to combat this, planned variations in load and volume can effectively be utilized to increase strength. And it just made me think about our programming a little bit. Like, we plan out, the amount that you're doing, the volume that you're doing, as well as the variations in the percentages that you're doing. So that way you have those strength numbers. But I think it's a good idea to like take it down a bit and maybe focus more on your technique and form when you can. Kyle.
So there were several interesting things here. I read that one of the participants was wearing a weight belt, and they didn't tell him not to. The footwear was not standardized, so everybody was kind of wearing whatever footwear they wanted to. You had the one guy who was doing the touch and go reps instead of the rest at the bottom, those kinds of things. And I thought it was cool, and I thought it was good that the researchers didn't prevent people from doing those things. They just kind of, well, let's see if this kind of helps or not. You know what I mean? And the weight belt apparently didn't change anything. Like it didn't make it statistically significant, a statistically significant difference for that one participant who was using it, as far as like symmetry and things like that. I would have liked to have seen some standardized footwear. And we've talked about that before, about having like a good hard sole shoe when you're deadlifting, or even deadlifting barefoot or with just socks on or something like that. So you can really drive that force into the ground and you don't have these spongy, foamy, soft shoes that are absorbing a lot of that force. And so I kind of would have liked to have seen that, added to the protocol, but I did like to see that it didn't really make a difference for these people, that the shoes weren't standardized and that they still were able to measure their asymmetry and things like that. I did pull that out as well, of like the bouncing the weight, kind of like what Joe said, the touch and go reps. Something else that they noticed as well was the most asymmetrical rep in every set was the first rep. And I think anybody who has any experience with deadlifting would kind of agree with that. Like your first rep is just kind of like, all right, I'm getting into the flow. And then after that first rep, especially like with other lifts too, I find that as well. Or like strict press, we did strict press yesterday. And like once getting that first press up there is the hardest one for me. And then I can get in a rhythm of getting it going. But that's kind of what I saw as well, was that first rep. And I think anybody who has any experience lifting kind of knows that. Anyway, I would like to see this same study done with some more advanced lifters, people who are more used to like accommodating for those things and can maybe even like sense those things during a set of like, man, I'm leaning a little bit too much to one side or something like that. They're used to accommodating. I'd like to actually see if they have any asymmetry at all, like as far as like the longer period you spend lifting or the more experience that you have lifting, does that asymmetry kind of go away, or do you kind of keep that even on into more and more experienced lifters as they're lifting more weight or getting more reps or things like that? Like, I would like to see if advanced lifters still kind of have the same issues, or if it's just kind of gone away because of their experience. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting to see this.
Yeah, I mean, just my opinion on that question. I think advanced lifters would have significant asymmetries that they have just learned to deal with. And they mentioned the other studies they had looked at to where their asymmetries do not affect performance. Like that was one, like athletes can still do what they do. Football players can still be great. Powerlifters can still lift a lot. An asymmetry is not going to make you worse necessarily. It's the only real thing is like it can lead to injury. And I think that's why when a powerlifter like has an injury, it's like catastrophic. It's not like well, one, the loads are ridiculous too, but I think that they have a slight asymmetry and it's built up over years and years, and they've just worked around it. Then all of a sudden, boom, like something blows up or ruptures or whatever the case is. That'd just be my opinion, but I would love to see that study as well, Kyle, because I think seeing professional powerlifters go through it, I'd either like to see if like, oh yeah, they have a base level asymmetry that most lifters have, or if it's like significant or reduced. I think that'd be really cool to see. One cool thing I pulled out of the study was how they equated the cumulative external load to their 1 rep max. They were having people lift 1,500% of their 1 rep max in volume, if that makes sense. So you take your 1 rep max, you take a 1,500% of that, and that would be the total volume that you lifted. I've never thought to program that way, and it blows my mind. But the one thing we don't know is if this was an effective program either. So I don't know if it worked, but it's very interesting because what we use is INOL, which is intensity based off number of lifts, and there's calculations to look at these things. And what that does is it helps individualize it per person. So we're not getting too crazy based off percentages we program for athletes. But this is INOL is not easy to do. Long story short, INOL, there's a lot of calculating to do INOL, and we have spreadsheets and stuff that can help with that. But this would be way easier to program if it's effective. From what I saw in the programming, it looks baseline effective, right? Like you can sets of 80% or whatever, 10 sets of 60%, like that. These things look like they would do well. So I thought that was really interesting. Had nothing to do really with the study. I just found that an interesting programming technique. And then just kind of my view of this, it doesn't change what I've kind of always thought. And light loads are practice. Even if they're dynamic effort, they're practice. So every single warm-up repetition you do, every single light load that you do, it should just be perfect practice. And then heavy loads are a magnifying glass. And we've talked about this before, but heavy loads are definitely a magnifying glass. They are going to put stress and pressure on every area. You cannot run, you cannot hide, you cannot accommodate. Something will be found if you have an asymmetry, an imbalance, like it will come out when you add heavy load to it. So if you're getting your lower back hurts when you do a heavy back squat, or your knee starting to hurt when the load goes up, you're already identifying these things for yourself. It is not, oh, that's just the way I am. Like, yeah, my knee hurts when I start to lift 90% of my 1 rep max. It's like, no, your asymmetry or imbalance is becoming more apparent at a heavier load, and you need to do something to correct that. And so that's something I've always felt. Heavy load is just like, it's the ultimate test of like what kind of shape your body is in. And so it really brings a strong case to me for our deload weeks. So not only do we deload, but we're doing our body geometry programming during deload. And so you're able to practice, you're able to back off, like a big part of body geometry is to avoid imbalances. Like that's why it's in existence. So we can try and work on different planes of movements, things that aren't always, the same plane of movement, how a lot of programs, to be honest, program, because they may not even be aware that there are multiple planes of movement. Some of the fitness influencers other people follow, they probably never heard of that. They might not also know there are different types of muscle contractions. And so we kind of take those things into account and program them every 4th week in our programming to keep people balanced. And then I think if you're feeling really unbalanced, this is probably just a good time to mention it. our human program is coming out soon. That's what we called it. If you watch the webinar or listen to that podcast, and that's like the point of this for our newer athletes, it's an onboarding and indoctrination process. For our veteran athletes, no matter your fitness level, it's a reset. It's fixing imbalances. It's 7 weeks long. Like it'll do that. It'll help you and just reset. Just go through the whole program. If you feel like you keep getting these like nagging injuries over and over again, yeah, heavy load is a very uncomfortable and like a painful type way. Go for the human program, reset, and get better. So those are just kind of a lot of my anecdotal thoughts about this. I thought the study was awesome. It gives us a lot of good information on making sure that we continue to do what we're doing, which is programming heavy with dynamic efforts to make sure that we're hitting both of those things. But then every time you're doing dynamic effort, making sure you're having that perfect form each and every single rep.
Yeah. One of the things that I wish they had on this study, and if this is recreated over other athletes, I wish there was a control group for double overhand for symmetrical deadlifting, just to see if how the difference was, if there was a baseline to see, even if there were people with asymmetries that didn't lift a double overhand or mixed grip, because the imbalance in the asymmetry comes from the mixed grip. And get into my side tangent and anecdotal stuff is I switched from mixed grip to double overhand grip 4 years ago, and I haven't looked back because I just feel so much stronger. And I was noticing that even though you can switch your grips back and forth between sets, I was favoring one side, and I noticed that my mid back and upper back strength was starting to break down a lot earlier in my deadlift, and I just felt like my form was starting to suffer. I didn't feel as strong or as tight, even though I could hold on to the weight and grip the weight. It was other parts that were breaking down. Now my only limiting factor is my grip strength, and everything else is strong, and I can pull more. It's just my grip strength that fails, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay not maxing out and having getting my deadlift super high if everything else is in line. And this reminds me of probably the best, from a coaching standpoint, the best gym that I'd ever been to. And I know a lot of CrossFit places and gyms get bad reps, but this is a CrossFit gym with phenomenal coaches that whenever we would deadlift, you had two grip options to deadlift. You can either do double overhand grip and just do your sets like you normally would, or if you did mixed grip, you had to set the bar down, switch between every single rep, and then regrip and pick it up. So you didn't do touch and go, and you were alternating your grip every single rep and picking it up complete dead stop, so that you were completely balanced the entire time. And it was one of those things where I'm like, well, I don't want to reset every single time, so I'm just going to do double overhand grip. And that's what I did. And that's how I just started doing it. And I just felt like that was set such a good precedent, because they're like, we don't care about you pulling this max weight. We want you to still remain balanced, no injuries, none of that stuff, because we want you to be a total athlete and not just pulling heavy weight. So to get into, I guess we're getting into killing comforts, is I think everybody should be trying and doing double overhand clean grip, like you do your hook grip or whatever for deadlift. And if you need to go switch grip, don't do it till like maybe you're 90% or so. But even so, you should still force yourself to commit to the double overhand grip and do that for a long time, because it'll build up your grip strength, but it'll make you much more stable, much more stronger in your back and your entire posterior chain. Because when you mix grip, you're externally rotating your shoulder, and that's kind of turning off some of the muscles on that side, and you have to compensate somehow. So that would be mine.
Well, we're going to have to get into, now everybody has to talk about how they deadlift. So I got to ask the other coaches on the podcast, are you doing double overhand or do you do mixed grip? Ashley?
Mixed. And I favor right hand goes over, left hand is under when I do it, which is why I think it's good to switch it up, because I know that I favor this.
Kyle?
Yeah, it's the exact same for me. I do mixed grip and right hand over and left hand under.
It's weird. I always favored
for
right hand
rep.
under. Right hand under, left hand over when I used to do it. I don't know why.
Same. So I do left hand over, right hand under when I do mixed grip, but I feel like I'm in between Kyle, Ashley, and Joe. I do a double overhand until my grip is my limiting factor, and then I switch
Right.
to mixed.
Right.
And I don't actually
always do that.
normally recommend that for athletes because I'm not as worried about an imbalance because of how I do it. Like if I had to look at my total volume, 90% of my volume is probably double overhand, and then 10% or less is mixed. So I'm not worried about an imbalance or asymmetry as much. The biggest, I think, real danger with mixed grip is a torn bicep. And that if you don't know what you're doing, I feel like it's very possible there can be no flex in that bicep. Like everyone has to understand that. Like,
Yeah.
like, and it happens to people because you're just straining, right? And if
Right.
you're not real good at controlling your body through heavy loads, all you're really doing, if you're inexperienced, and I'd say less than 5 to 7 years. Okay, so don't just lump yourself into this experienced category. Less than 5 to 7 years of lifting, you're probably just straining, and you don't realize that you're partly trying to flex your bicep against like 350 pounds, whatever your deadlift max that you're going for. Your bicep's going to lose that battle every time.
Yeah.
And it will lose big one time to where it detaches and rolls up to your shoulder. And then you're going to the emergency room and a lot of physical therapy afterwards. So that's the dangerous part of that, and why, beyond what Joe is saying, I was trying to put it in a much scarier format of why you probably shouldn't be doing it. And the only reason I even do it, like I said, is if I'm going to max out, which is probably the worst time to do it. But I just feel comfortable at this point. Like it's like, well, I feel like I can do it. I feel like I don't strain that bicep at all. I have basically dead arms when I'm doing a deadlift. And so I make sure that they're just perfectly straight. Like all they're doing is hitting, holding there. But the alternative here is straps. Just put some straps on, and you can just, that grip thing goes out the window. But again, straps or a mixed grip should only come in to play when your grip has failed you and you can no longer hold on to the bar. And I don't think I have very good grip strength because that doesn't happen. Like it happens. We get into like anything 85% for more than a couple reps, and I'm having issues. And then it's worse when it's humid and hot outside. It's like I can't hold on to anything. So anyway, not a conversation.
Yeah, the coaches would also talk about the bicep tear as well. The ones that would have.
I've seen it. I've seen it a couple people, and I'm like,
oh gosh,
I don't ever want my bicep to look like that. It's pretty bad.
No, thank you.
All right. Any did everyone go through killing comfort with this?
Just Joe.
Yeah, just Joe. I was gonna say actually film yourself. Well, I said maybe switch if you're doing mixed grips, but since we're talking about how dangerous that is, I'm gonna pivot that to my other one, which is maybe film yourself when you're doing certain lifts. I always think it's good for all lifts, but and maybe kind of look for those discrepancies. For mine, for deadlifts, I haven't noticed necessarily tilting, but I noticed that I lift with my butt first and then with my hamstrings. Isn't that weird? So I'm still working on that, but and then for even that, I guess another killing comfort would be maybe lower your weight and see where you can actually like fix those discrepancies with that lower weight, and then try not to add that heavy load until you can do all reps with good technique. Kyle.
So from a coaching standpoint, I think there's a lot of killing comfort tips that I would give here for the deadlift, because I think that we kind of, when you watch kids, like young kids, like my kids can deadlift perfectly. Like they can pick things up off the floor perfectly. They squat down, they pick it up, and they stand up with it.
The squat is what kills me.
We kind of lose that. We kind of lose that as we get older and we become adults. And so when people first start deadlifting, there's a lot of things that you
may want to foster that, because when my kids pick up a kettlebell, it's pretty scary. So you might want to, like, your kids have this like natural ability.
Your kids are older. Your kids are older than mine, but
that's true.
They haven't lost it. My kids haven't lost it yet.
Yeah.
But what the one thing that I would say, and that I pulled specifically from the study, was do your freaking warm up before you do deadlifts. And I think, and it made it pretty clear that the more reps they did, the more symmetrical they became, and as in their symmetry didn't break down as they continued doing more reps, and as the weight got heavier, they actually got more symmetrical as the weight got heavier and as the more reps they did. So Go ahead and especially when with that point that I made earlier of the first rep in each set was the least symmetrical of the whole set. Get those warm-up reps in before you start doing your working sets so that you can get everything warmed up, so that you can make sure that you've already gotten your symmetry down and you're getting the most out of your reps from a symmetry standpoint, and you're not overcompensating on one side or with one muscle group or something like that. Make sure that you're doing your warm-up. That's my killing.
That actually was mine as well. So I was going to hit on warm-up sets. I think that's really important when lifting. To Kyle's point that he brought up in the study, that first rep is always the worst rep, and you can eliminate that by progressing properly. Like, and we put that in there for like fit week and stuff when we're trying to walk you through that. But in a regular training session, we might not. You might see your first if you're skipping the warm-up asterisk. So you'll just see your first block is like 5 reps, 80%, right? Well, there was a warm-up that's supposed to happen before you get to that. And we always have that program. So make sure you do that. So that's my same killing comfort. And we program those warm-ups, and it's because as you become more advanced in fitness or more experienced, should I say, you forget how much people don't know how to warm up. I was reminded of this fact when my brother first started working out with me again. Like the first week, I would just be like, all right, we're gonna do like a 10-minute warm up. You warm up, I'll warm up. Like I wasn't leading it. It was just like, we'll go through the workout together, but like, let's both warm up separately. Once you feel warm, we'll meet up for the training session. And he would basically do nothing. He'd be like, okay, touch my toes. He like take my PVC pipe and like do some random stretches that don't make any sense. And then I'd be like, dude, we're squatting today and you're really focused on loosening up those shoulders. Like what's going on here? And so that's when I started immediately. I was like, okay, I'll just start programming or making sure that we're going through the programmed warm up or some version of it together. But I do tend to forget or lose sight of that as a coach, like how important it is. And I'm glad that we program those things for people, but don't, as an athlete, think that you've graduated to being better than warming up for some reason. Like it's like, I'm pretty advanced. And I think this is more of a theme that I'm seeing. The more experience you get, the more you take for granted what you're actually doing. What, like when you work out, especially in any of our training sessions, physiologically, that was a big deal. Like what you just did was a very big deal. What your body just went through is a very big deal. So 1, you should be prepped for it. And then 2, you should focus on recovering from that. You didn't go on a walk. You didn't just like go walk around your neighborhood and you're like, you know what, let's call it good. I'll eat whatever the rest of the day. Added water, who cares? Like you just did something that was significant to your body, even if you don't realize it, even if you don't feel that tired. I don't care how advanced, how much experience you have. That was a big deal, what you just did. So you need to make sure that you're warmed up for that. And then you're also focusing the rest of the day on recovering from that, drinking enough water, eating enough food, all those things. And it's easy to lose sight of how big of a deal training actually is physiologically. And the second you lose sight of that, you start to get in trouble and you start to, going back to last podcast, maybe you start under eating because you don't realize what your training is, or maybe you stop warming up, or maybe you stop cooling down because you've just gotten so used to it just being a part of your life, but it's a big freaking deal. So warm up and make sure you're ready for your training.
Sometimes block zero, even the warm up, I try to, in my brief, say, hey, maybe warm up to the 85%, even though you did block zero, so start out lower. Even if it's taking you a little bit longer time, it's worth it.
So like with fit week or just on max effort days or something like that, especially for fit week, when we're doing major barbell movements, your working sets will be a set of 5 and a set of 3 and then sets of 1. So we're building in warm-up sets in your working sets, but you also have, like Jerred said, you have that warm-up. So for me, anytime I'm doing barbell work, even in the middle of a cycle, just a regular Tuesday training session or something, if I'm doing warm-ups like that year that we did BCT, every day that we did squats, my first warm-up set is an empty bar. Like you know, and it's like I'm warming up with an empty bar, and it's like it doesn't matter how much weight I'm going to be using for the working sets. I'm warming up with an empty bar. That's my first warm up set, and you'd actually be surprised how, you know, what can be revealed to you by doing, you know, 10 empty barbell squats, you know, in warming up. You can be surprised at things start popping, or, you know, things are hurting, you know. It's like, you know, man,
My knees,
you know, it's like, yeah, it's like Jerred said, you know, thinking about recovery and things like that. But like anytime I'm doing barbell work, my first set is an empty bar. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. So, and then I'll work up from there. I'll do like an extra 2 or 3 warm up sets before I get to, like on max days, the warm up sets of the working sets. You know, I'll do like 2 or 3 before I even get to there, just to make sure I'm nice and warm.
All right.
Clearly, we
Let's
like
get
this
in-
study.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good study.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into the topic. We're right at the beginning of the year. Probably a good time to discuss it. We're cutting it into goal setting in general terms. Is just that's what I'm prepared to talk about. And Joe has like some really specific, like how to stay focused on a goal. And I think that that's really good. And I want to talk about, like, I talk about goal setting with a lot of people all the time. And so I just have a lot, maybe too much to say. So I'm just going to kind of put in my highlighted points that are most important. But I'm really big on goal setting and keeping things going throughout the year, especially like the Daily Over Decades challenge we have right now. Like that's a phenomenal goal, but you know, bringing that into even something closer, you know, like it's okay to do something like that, but also have a goal on top of that. So how do you juggle something like that? These are the kind of things that we want to discuss today. But Joe, what do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, just to give a little background also to my thinking toward this. And so the daily over decades goal, that is a process goal, which is always what we talk about is like the number one thing that you should probably try and focus on is a process goal. But we also have gone over a lot of studies on the mental aspect of it, whether it's being, you know, the visualization or being dialed in and focusing on what you're doing. And so what I wanted to talk about or have, and if anybody wants to do this for the cycle, I would encourage is to have 3 focus goals and prioritize the number 1, the number 2, and the number 3. And with these focus goals, it is, you know, I try and make mine specific, but you can kind of see what works best for you. Is for the next cycle, for the next 12 weeks or however long, what are you going to be mentally focused, dialed into visualizing? Because like every day and every workout, we're not always going to be dialed in. We're not always going to want to work out, be motivated or visualizing through that. So that's why I say the priority to, you know, what are you going to be focused on the most? Okay, that's the number 1 thing. Okay, what after that are you going to focus on the second most? You know, and that is when this comes up in a workout, you are going to really be into it mentally, preparing yourself. Like you should, like obviously you should always try with your workouts, but you know, mentally focusing on those moments and really pushing yourself on those moments. And then the second most thing. So for example, this past year when I was working on my back squat for the past year, I knew the entire year that I was focusing on my back squat. So any back squat day, I was like completely dialed in, checked in, even if I had to like reorder my workouts for the week. So if I was like feeling a little lackluster on a Monday squat day, I'd move that to Wednesday and do press on the beginning of the week because I wanted to completely be focused and dialed in on the squat because I knew that was my number 1 focus goal. And any of the accessory work, I was completely committed and dialed in mentally on any sort of lower body accessory because I was thinking of the squat. And like I still did all the other workouts, but this is just from a focus mindset point. So that's kind of the background of my logic toward this. And it's something that you can write on your whiteboard, and it's should be fairly easy to implement, but as long as you are getting mentally dialed in for these focus goals. So mine is going to be, I guess we're just going to say ours. So my top one for this next cycle is going to be increased my running load. So the focus for there is if I can have, whether it's a spare day or end of a workout day, I just want to increase the amount that I run. Now this isn't like running faster. This isn't me. I need to increase my mile time. This is just, I just want to add some miles, some running to what I'm doing. That's going to be a focus for if I have extra time or on like rest days or some other day would be increase my running load. After that, I still want to maintain my back squat. So once again, when it comes to lower body and back squat days, I still need to be focused on maintaining my back squat because I didn't work for an entire year for my back squat just to lose it. So I'm still going to try and keep dialed in on my back squat. And my third one would be upper body strength because I know, or upper back strength specifically, because this is when a goal can play into a focus goal can play into your warm up. If you have a focus goal that is pull-ups, then maybe every day or every other day, you should be doing pull-ups or some pull-up accessory part of your warm-up, because every little bit for that will count. And it's not actually altering the workout. It is just, you're just adding a little bit more emphasis to it, to your normal workout. So upper back strength, pull-ups, and that, because I know my shoulder still had some issues, and I want to get my pull-ups back to what they used to be. So did all that make sense?
Are you going for the 5 by 500? Just like, be real.
The what?
5-minute mile, 500-pound back squat.
No,
Like
it would be like it would be like 4. It'd be a 4 and sub 6. I do have that on my mind. So a year ago, I was thinking.
I really feel like there's an outcome goal leading, because you're still kind of in the process goal, and I'm like, where's the outcome? Like, what's the outcome he's looking for? So it's 4:05 plus what? So what's the mile time?
Sub 6.
Okay, so like
which I was at
5:59, 4:05. Okay.
Yeah, I only need like 15 seconds on my mile from the last time that I tested, but it's been a while since I've tested. But I also want to do it in the same day.
Oh wow, it's gonna get me all fired up again, Joe.
Man.
Oh no.
BCT, baby, here we go.
He's gonna break his back again.
Round 2.
No, I'm not gonna break myself again.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm taking the long approach to this one.
Well, so am I. And you guys kind of know that I've had that approach, like being serious on my squatting days, and I do additional running, and I'm just kind of gonna see where it goes. Not in a, I have to get this done in a year. That's what broke me last time, because I was trying to fit probably 3 years worth of volume into 365 days, and it wasn't good. So I'm taking 3 to 5 year approach, see where I end up. But that's not my goal at all. So I'm sorry. I just was curious where you were headed with that.
It's kind of like a way further
cool.
down the road, but this is just the next 12 weeks is what I'll be focusing on.
Cool.
All right, Kyle.
Oh, okay. Well, I misunderstood the assignment a little bit, I guess. So as far as so I guess my biggest goal that I wrote down was the 300 training sessions, because I'm going to go for that this year. And so I guess
you can still focus that in the cycle.
Yeah, I could just, making sure every day is focused on getting the training session done.
That one's going to need it.
It's there.
That one might change depending on who you are, whether you need to focus on the minutes or focus on the calories.
Yeah.
Depending on what level.
Yeah.
So, and then kind of like you, instead of increasing run volume, I'm going to increase cycling volume, just because I bought a bike and I don't ride it. So I feel like I need to do that. And also I really don't like running. You know what? I did BCT for a year and we did a lot of running.
I paid my dues, dang it.
I got more used to it. I knocked some time off my mile time. That was great. You know, it was great, but it's still like, I just don't like it. So I'm gonna try to replace kind of like what you were saying on rest days and things like that, doing more cycling instead of running. And then number 3 is body composition, just really kind of, but that's just a goal of mine, like an outcome goal more than a focus goal. I didn't really zero in on how to focus on that, but that was an outcome goal that I set. So that's what I need to figure out.
For that focus, it could be whenever you make food, like your food choices.
Right.
As long if it's
you
always
know what to do.
Yeah, if it's always on your mind, you're always focused on it, whether you write it on a board or something, then you're always seeing it and be like, yeah, maybe I should have, this instead of this.
Some of the things instead of all of the things.
Some of the things instead of all of the things. And this has been Diet Advice by Kyle.
I'm gonna have my own little segment. Anyway, all right, Ashley.
And he's the CTE coach. That's the best part.
Yeah. They're getting great advice. Just have some of those things, not all of those things.
No wonder everybody's jumping on those calls.
Yeah.
So I'll talk a little bit about goal setting. For me is not easy. I'm a planner. I'm very organized, but I'm not a great goal setter. I've never been a great goal setter. So actually this is uncomfortable for me. So when we talk about killing comfort, so it's actually something that I've challenged myself to do. Actually Jerred has challenged our team to do almost every year. We talk about some goals, and he even has these great sheets that we can work on. But something that helps me a lot, because I am a planner, like having a calendar in front of me, I don't know why, but that kind of like settles me. And so I can look at, okay, these are the next 3 months. This is the year. And I'm talking about goals in general. I'm not just talking about our fitness goals, but it can also help as well, right? So I also set a time limit for myself. So I'm not just sitting there like dwindling, like, oh, I'm going to dwell on this for forever. I set a time limit, like, okay, take 15 minutes, take 20 minutes, and let's kind of focus. And then the best thing for me is thinking bigger picture and then working my way into the smaller focus. I can't start out small and then get to the whole year. That stresses me out a lot. So I have to kind of figure out big first and then kind of narrow it down. So for this cycle, I'm focusing kind of on Joe's point to running, but mine is more zone 2 conditioning for myself. I have kind of gotten away from that. I do zone 2 stuff. I'm always in zone 2 or zone 3, right? So, but then like I've kind of gone away from an extra zone 2 conditioning. And so I kind of want to add that. So kind of what Joe said, like on a rest day, or if I have more minutes that I need for my goal, that I can add some more zone 2 conditioning. And running and rowing are the only 2 things that I can really do because I don't have a bike. Maybe if I just talk about it on the podcast a little longer, it'll show up at my front doorstep. We'll see. And then,
Happens sometimes.
Yeah, you know, it just does. And then Kyle talked about the 300 goal. Mine's 200. So that's what I'm setting myself at. I said the competitive nature in me wants to do 300, level 3. I don't want to row or I want to bike. But realistically, with my limitations, I know that that's just not going to happen for me. So I'm setting myself at the 200, and I'm definitely going to be focused in on that. And the great part about that is we've all kind of talked about this as a team a little bit, but I like to write everything down. So now it's going to be a new habit of writing down my minutes, my calories, everything like that. So I'm going to focus on that. And then lastly, I'm on the strength chat. So I haven't maxed out actually in almost a year. I was looking back. And so my numbers are not far off from what they were when I was, you know, not on this limitation. And so I'm excited to see, like, on the strength track, like, can my numbers get back to that? And I'm sure they can. But
that's up to Joe.
That's up to Joe.
And how much you focus.
True, how much I focus, but I don't really have like a number in my, I mean, obviously then my last max, which is 215 on my back squat, but I don't have like I really want 250 pounds by the end of the year or something like that. It's just more of like, I'm more mindful, I guess, of the strength. And I may even do 2 full cycles of strength because of it before I go back to my home, which is harder to kill. So
it's probably the best way to go about it.
Yeah.
Unbiased.
Jerred.
Yeah, so my goals are a little bit boring. I'm really only going for the 300. If anyone's curious about this 300, 200 thing we're talking about, for some reason you haven't picked up on it yet, go to dailyoverdecades.com and you can check out what this challenge is all about. You can pick it up at any point in time that you would like. But I'm not adding anything to this personally, but I might after the first 12 weeks. So that's it for 2022 is I'm trying this because I think it's going to add a level of discipline to my training that I haven't had in a very long time, because 300 training sessions for me in a year is about standard. It's about average. That's going to happen. Almost doesn't matter. Unless, you know, something like some sort of accident or serious illness came up. That's the only thing I see me not getting 300 sessions. But then the 2 layers beyond that to me are crazy. 300 calories is not the hard one for me, because mainly because I wear a Garmin and it just straight up tells me the calories. So if I know I just need to continue doing work until I hit 301 or whatever, 300, like that's easy because I'm already working out. So the sessions and the calories, I don't think gonna be the challenge part. The time is going to be the challenging part for me
Right.
because I never really tracked it before. And like if I had a couple of short training sessions on vacation in the 300, that would have been fine. Like I did 4 30-minute sessions. I was on vacation. That's not going to fly in the 300 minutes per week. Right. And so I originally started this 300 thing because that I set that as a goal several years ago. I don't know if you guys remember when I first said I wanted to do that. Like that was the only thing I was tracking. And it kind of came off the back of Murph, because Murph gave you that at least once per week. If you guys also remember when I did Murph weekly, it was on Saturday. There was no like, oh, I'm traveling, I'm gonna have to knock it out on Friday, or I'll do it when I get back on Sunday, because I didn't want the ability to shift things around. I wanted to also train my discipline. And so that's why it had to be on Saturday. And what made for that is waking up at 3 a.m. sometimes when your flight's at 6 a.m. to get Murph done, because you know that there's no way in hell it's happening later in that day because of how much travel you have, or getting back from some sort of sporting event with your kids at 8:45 at night, putting them to bed, and then knowing you still only have a few hours left in the day to get Murph done because you didn't do it in the morning like you were supposed to. It adds this level of discipline and grit to your life that is good for you, in my opinion, you know, and I think that's what's going to come back with this 300 challenge, because I know I'm going to get to weeks where I've probably hit the training sessions and I've hit the calories, but it's going to be Sunday and I'm going to be like, all right, I have to train
20 more minutes,
65 minutes this week because I traveled or whatever, and I have to train 65 minutes today. And it's the end of the day and I just have to get it done. I think it's going to bring that level. Like I think most standard weeks where it's just me at home, garage gym training, like it's going to be fine. But there are going to be those weeks, and I have a lot of travel scheduled for 2022 where it's going to be very hard, to where it's like, yeah, I'm waking up early on vacation to get it done, or I'm staying up late to make sure it gets done. And so that's why that's the only thing I want this year, because I think it's going to be hard enough. But the way I really look at this, though, and the reason I might add something on top of it, if I feel like I've really got it really dialed in and it's not as hard as I thought it was going to be, I just need to really pay attention to things, I will add something like, cycling, run volume, back squat, something like that. So the way I look at this is a process goal like the 300 or 200 is you've started a fire, right? And that's about all you've done. You have a fire, you can chill and you can just get warm by the fire. That's kind of my plan right now, right? But you can do a lot of other things with fire. You could cook food with fire. You could forge a sword with fire. Like you could do a lot of crap once you have the fire going. And so that's what I feel like this challenge really is it's the fire. So if you can get that fire going and keep it going for an entire year, you could easily add taking this fire and turning it into something else, using that energy to get a bigger back squat, using this energy to run faster mile times or do something cool. But none of that's going to happen without the consistency part at the front end. And so I think it's going to be a really hard challenge for me, but don't think that you can't do multiple things. So to break it down for a cycle goal, kind of like Joe's talking about, it's 75 training sessions and a quarter. Right. Like, so I got to hit 5 training sessions per week, and they have to be a certain amount of time, a certain amount of calories each and every single time. And to Ashley's point, she's like, there's this new habit of like journaling and tracking. I had to immediately eliminate that because I knew I wouldn't do it. I was like, nope, it won't happen. Like, I'm not gonna, if I had to track this manually, it will not happen. The tracking of it, the work might still happen, but the tracking of it's not going to happen. Like, I'd have to go back once a month and spend 2 hours like looking at Garmin data to be like, okay, I got it all. And so the reason I spent like 2 days,
at the end of the training session.
Yeah, it sounds easy, right? I won't do it. It's just like, it's not a habit for me. It's not going to happen. And so that's the reason I spent 2 days making this an automated, maybe one of the most advanced automated and tracking ways you could keep track of the 300 thing with Monday and Zapier and like all these crazy software we're using. But now once I hit done, I hit done on my Garmin watch, I'm done. Like it's all tracked for me. That's what I wanted. And so now it's all tracked. But that's how funny. And I mean, just really, let's say how well I know myself at this point. Yeah. Because that's 2 different things. That's not, I'm trying to do the 300 challenge, which is, I think, already going to be challenging for me. It was going to be the 300 challenge. Plus I need to pick up this new habit of journaling that I don't do. And so I'm like, I can't have that. I can't have another thing. I only need the one thing. I can't have two things I'm trying to pick up.
Here we go.
But that's how humans work. And
Yeah.
I've seen people enough like to where this is for you. Actually, you don't see it because you've been journaling religiously for years. Like you're really good at it. But for someone who doesn't do it, I've even tried picking it back up because I used to journal my workouts and then I stopped once I started taking pictures of the whiteboard and stuff just to have like a record of things. And that's about all I'll do max now is take a picture of the whiteboard or a screenshot of like Team Builder or something like that just for record. But most of the time I can just look back in Team Builder now. So it's really, I'd say, discouraged me. Team Builder has discouraged me from keeping any sort of physical log because I'm always like, I could just go back to that day and look, why am I writing this down? And so that I really don't have a big why for journaling anymore. So know yourself is my biggest point to that in your goal setting, what you are or are not capable of. And I think Ashley is very capable of doing the 300, but she knows realistically, given, her stage of life and everything that she's doing, she needs to be in the 200. But I wouldn't be surprised if you hit 250 or 275 or something like that and going for it, but she's being realistic. And I think that's great for everyone to think about too. If you're tackling this challenge, what's possible for you, and knowing that you don't have to hit all three levels. Like you can hit any level of any of this and you're going to be better off for it. So just know where you're at, because 4 training sessions a week for a year is still hard. Like,
right.
I brought this up to my brother. I'm like, do you want to try this challenge? I'd probably put you in the 200 category. And he's like, that will be really tough. I'm like, yes, it will be really tough. And when people see it, they realize how hard it's really going to be.
Yeah.
But the last thing I want to say on that, I brought this up to Emily, and I was like, it would be really cool if like money were no object, and you could like do this for people to see how motivated you could get them. Because I understand that sometimes you need an extrinsic motivator for people to like take action. But if you dangle a carrot for long enough and it just turns into a habit in their life, that would be amazing, right? Mm-hmm. So what I think would be really cool, everyone here, this is hypothetical at Garage Gym Athlete. We're not financially committing to what I'm about to say.
Disclaimer.
But you have to commit to the 300, and you will receive $1,000 for every training session you complete, but only if it's completed at the level and version of the challenge that you committed to at the end of the year. That's $300,000. Okay. Like, think about how many people would enter that challenge if we could do that. If we could financially put on a challenge like that. And, maybe we only have one winner, like the rower itself, right? Like, we're giving away a rower, but I was telling her I would love if we could do something like this, to where you're going to get $1,000 per training session. You have to complete every one. There'd be tracking. We'd have millions of people sign up for this thing. And then one person wins 300 grand. Cool. Awesome. You got $300,000. But then, 100,000 people all develop the fitness habit. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, not sorry. Okay. Like you didn't win the money. Someone else won the money, but you're going to live 15 years longer. Congratulations. It's probably more important than $300,000 anyway. Anyway, that's where I want to take that challenge one day if we can. Then you'd all get it done, right? You'd all have 300 training sessions, no problem, if that was the financial care.
That's like all of our dreams, getting paid to actually work out. That's pretty great.
Yeah. It's like being a professional athlete, but only if you win.
Exactly.
All right. Well, we can get into, unless anybody has anything else on goal setting. Know thyself.
Know thyself.
Yeah.
All right. What's the workout for this week?
Fat and sugar. The one that we let Marco get his hands on.
Yes. You're
the one that proved we're not letting Marco do that ever again.
Yeah. So I
tried
still have
him on abdominal snowman, but
I still have the original proposed fat and sugar on my Garmin, because that's the one I actually did.
He brings this up every time
because it's the only one. It's the only one that I'm going to do. So I might
boycotts the actual workout and does his own version of.
I had already agreed upon the original terms. The original terms. All right, signed on the contract.
Before Marco got it
done. Yes, it was one of those. I'll take the deal now. Kind of like deal or no deal. I took the deal.
Yeah.
Marco came in. I already took the deal. I was done. Okay. So anyway, all right. So fat and sugar, repeat the following circuit. You will do 8 minutes, zone 2, run, bike, and zone 2 is 60 to 70% of your max heart rate. Then you will do at the 8-minute mark, you will do 2 minutes of zone 4 or greater burpee pull-ups. So that is 80% of your max heart rate or higher. And you will do that circuit until you have totaled 100 burpee pull-ups. Your competitors wear a 20-pound vest. At the end, once you reach that 100 burpee pull-up mark, take a 5-minute rest period, tally up how much time is spent outside of zone 2 and zone 4. So the 8 minutes is zone 2, the 2 minutes in zone 4 plus. So that would be zone 3 or zone 1. Tally up how much total time has been in that. And for every minute you are in the other zones, you will do 10 burpees, penalty burpees. So obviously you will need a heart rate tracker for this one. And if you don't have a heart rate tracker, then you're automatically doing 100 burpees.
Yep.
After the 5 minutes.
Even if you have a heart rate tracker, you're still doing the 100.
If you just don't want to, if you just you could just say like, yeah, I decided not to track it because I wanted to challenge myself. I didn't know if I was out of those zones. You can just save face and do that. That's fine. So what do we got?
I think it was Stephanie Peterson posted, it wasn't fat and sugar, I don't think, but we posted like a zone fluctuation workout recently, and she posted a screenshot. This is in the last couple of weeks of like her going from zone flexing up to 4 and down to 2 or whatever. Like I think I had it in hard to kill as like a run. I can't recall the exact workout, but she like skipped 3. Like she just did it. It was like, I think it said like 0 seconds in zone 3. It's like less than a second. She went from 2 to 4. So we should probably actually get her on here for some tips about how to skip a zone. But it was legit data. That was Apple Watch to like the Zones app. So like it's legit. But it can be done is my point. So tips, Kyle.
So to perform like Stephanie Peterson, you need to A, be a beast, and B, have been a runner for 25 years.
Yeah.
So that's how she does it.
Those are good tips. Those are process goal tips.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think she's the only one that has a heart rate that could rival Joe's, that could probably beat Joe's heart rate. I would say for this one, it takes a little brain work and it forces you to pay attention, which I think is cool. And definitely makes me meet myself just like trying to calculate everything and all that kind of stuff and pay attention to the heart rate zone that I'm in and all that kind of stuff. And there's small recovery things that you have to do during the workout to get down in the zone before you can start doing your work and all that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of where I meet myself is trying to make sure I'm doing the work in the proper heart rate zone and things like that. And so that's kind of what I like about it. But also it's uncomfortable for me because like when I'm doing a workout, I don't want to use my brain. Like when I'm working out, I want to like, that's why I write it on the whiteboard. That's why I don't have my phone out while I'm doing it. All that kind of like I'm turning my brain off and I'm doing the work. But this one kind of forces you to pay attention and to be intentional. And so that's what I like about it. And I say at the end, with however many burpees you have to do at the end, if you have burpees to do at the end, do them quickly. Just get them done. Don't be lazy with it. Don't, this is the end of the workout. You know what I mean? You've done all the other work. Knock out the burpees and get them done and get the workout over with. Don't be lazy because, I have to do burpees. It's like you've just done a ton of burpees already. So like just do more burpees and be done with it. Anyway, those are my points. Ashley.
I'm gonna go tag on the wearable thing. Like even if you do have a wearable, sometimes your wearable fails you. That's what happened to me with this one. And I'll never forget Jerred's answer, which was so Jerred, where it was just like, yeah, your wearable might fail you. And I know this. Now, can you change your mindset when it fails you and keep going? Or are you gonna get so pissed off that you just stop, And
I'm done. Failed technology. I'm just like, this workout sucks. It's not happening.
You're not even doing the real version.
It is dead too. It's just any day, anytime. Yeah.
But I mean, it was that like mirror that I needed for me to be like, gosh, he's right. Like, no, I'm not going to stop. Like, I'm going to do this. Right. And so Even I just remember my zones didn't even upload to the Zone app because it was so jacked up that day, and it was a brand new watch. So I just did the 100 burpees. So that's my advice, is like, if you don't have a wearable, or if your wearable fails you, whatever, just get this done. Just do the 100 burpees. It's fine. It's one workout. And yeah, try to enjoy it and try to push yourself on this.
You'll pass out before you die. That's what my football coaches always told me.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible advice. Jerred,
Yeah, I think
what you got?
high school football coaches, I think, created bro science. Like they
Yes.
are the originators.
Yes,
Yeah.
as
of
they have
bro
the
science.
Hands on your
that
head.
dip in their lip. And, ugh.
Yeah. So my tips for this one, anytime we have heart rate monitor stuff involved, I do factor that as part of the meet yourself. Is like, yeah, it might not work, or the chest strap might be uncomfortable under the weight vest. Like I don't care. Like
Suck it up.
these are part of the things that you're having to deal with. And if that little tiny thing is getting to you, just maybe think about that for a second, right? And how you can reframe that conversation. Because I've for some reason, like you all just mentioned, pretty much, is like technology can get to us, like, because it should just work, right? It just needs to work.
Mhm.
Don't get in my way. Don't slow me down. And my brother and I went for a run a couple weeks ago, and he normally just walks, and I run, depending on the workout. And I was like, you go ahead. I got to set up my heart rate monitor real fast. And I was having massive problems that day. Like it wasn't working. And he ended up getting like 15 minutes ahead of me. And I was like, that was a significant amount of wasted time, just trying to get this to work. But it was more like I was already 3 minutes into this and knew, like, you should just abandon this and go for the run, like stop and go, like just go. But there was that part of me that's like, no,
It must be solved. No.
yeah, this technology is going to work how it's supposed to work. Yeah, that's how I feel. And so that's, I don't know, it's just really funny with anybody who uses tech. Like that's a big part of it. But as far as getting through this, not a lot of tips here. It's programmed in such a way that you just can't do much. Like the only thing that you have to talk or think about is like how you're going to accumulate those burpee pull-ups, because you might be able to find like a set rep number for you that you can fit into those 2 minutes where you're in the proper zone, you're accumulating an amount you want, because you can't just be like, you know what, I'm just gonna do 5 burpee pull-ups each 2 minutes, because you might not be in the proper zone, right? There's so many like fluctuating things there, but maybe try and find that sustainability, repeatability thing, even though it's at this higher intensity with an exercise that sucks. So maybe that's 10, maybe that's 15, maybe that's 20 burpees, whatever you can do of those burpee pull-ups in those 2 minutes is the only thing I would focus on, because the rest of it's pretty simple, right? You can't do much else. And then, that 100 burpee cap at the end, like Kyle said, I would just go through it as fast as you can, and have fun with it. I mean, you're getting so much fitter by doing those extra burpees. So like, congratulations on being able to do extra burpees and getting those extra burpees. You're really in a phenomenal spot in your life to be able to do that. And these are the things that we should reflect on in this workout.
Look at the opportunity that is presented to you
that we've provided for you
to become a better human.
What an opportunity. That's how you should really walk into every situation. Opportunity for what? We don't know, but there's growth on the other end of it. All right. I think that's it. Anybody have anything else? Let's get out of here. Set some goals, deadlift properly. Don't blow out your bicep, and get some fat
eat all the
sugar
things,
done.
eat some of the things.
Oh,
Yeah.
You don't eat all of the things. Eat some of them.
That's
my contribution to the podcast today.
Yep.
Over an hour's worth of conversation, and that's my night.
Hey, a one-liner that can be remembered is a job well done in my book.
That's why I'm here.
All right. So if you want some amazing tips like this and, be a bigger part of the community, go to garagegymathlete.com, sign up for a 14-day free trial. Again, we have the Daily Over Decades Challenge that can be picked up at any time. Doesn't matter if it's January 1st, February 19th, or even February 31st. It doesn't matter when you want to start. All right. And whenever you want to start, you can start the challenge. And so go to dailyoverdecades.com. that's really just going to take you to a different part of the Garage Gym Athlete website. And so you can go find out what we're doing, how we're doing it. Definitely get involved if you're picking it up late, and sign up for that trial if you haven't. For all of our athletes, as of recording this, I think we were getting close to 300, ironically, people who had signed up for the 300, 200 challenge. And I think that we'll have a lot more as we push through. So good luck, everyone, taking on that challenge. And thank you for being a part of it. But that's all we have for this week. And remember, if you don't kill comfort, comfort will kill you. To the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. Thanks for listening.